a brief reading from The Deadliest Sin. Crispin is returning at night to the priory to dig up a body. The priory lay quiet under a staggering veil of stars above. Crispin and Jack entered through the lich gate and directly into the churchyard. There was only a sliver of moon, but the stars, unmarred by clouds, lit the area enough for Jack and Crispin to see everything. Jack carried a spade leaning over his shoulder, and they looked around for Christopher. Crispin crept up to the church and looked through one of the glass-paned windows. Candles lit in the choir, and he could see the sisters still at their divine office, when they suddenly rose. One by one, they trailed out. A line of candles drifted, as if by sorcery, through the church to the night stair. He rounded the other side of the church, barred by a wall, and lifted himself up just enough to see over it. Yes, there they went, a line of seemingly floating candles against their black habits, striding through the night stair. One peeled away and headed toward the prioress's lodgings, and must have been Prioress Druetta. Soon enough, even the candles disappeared as they moved into the dorter, each one in their own cells on the first floor. One by one, the lights were snuffed out as the nuns retired for their second sleep. Crispin hopped down from the wall, searched in the windows for any more candles or movement, and was satisfied that all had retired. He returned to Jack to await Christopher. Presently, someone with a lantern in one hand, a spade in the other, just a dark figure without distinguishing details except for the walk that looked much like Crispin's, appeared in the gloom. He lifted the lantern and smiled. "I learn the strangest things from you, Crispin. Stealing bodies?" "We aren't stealing a body. We are merely going to examine it." Jack's eyes were wide, his mouth slack. "Why, sir, do we have to do such a dreadful thing?" he whispered. Crispin realized Jack was probably recounting their time in St. Modwen's churchyard when they dug up a body there. "Because I am becoming more and more convinced that Dame Audrey was murdered." "But she's been dead more than a sennight. What do you hope to discover?" "I'll never know unless I look." He turned toward Christopher, whose expression was similar to Jack's. "Are you all right?" All his mirth was gone. I never knew to what extent you would go to solve a crime, is all." There was enough light for Crispin to see Jack shaking his head, but the two of them set to, digging into Dame Audrey's grave. Crispin stood guard, occasionally checking their surrounds to make certain no one was watching. He even went so far as crouch his hut, but nothing appeared to be stirring within. No candles were lit, no movement could be heard. He pricked his ears when he thought he heard a tread nearby. He motioned for Jack and Christopher to halt what they were doing, and they all listened hard. There was a tread, and another. Silently, he went to investigate. The sounds of footsteps seemed to be from beyond the priory's walls. He hurried to the gate beside the church and remembered that he'd given his lockpicks to Philippa. There was nothing for it. He jumped at the wall, dug his fingers into the stone caps at the top, and hauled himself over. He dropped a little awkwardly to the ground on the other side, threw himself against the shadowed wall, and waited. A rustle, and the treads again. There was someone walking, but he couldn't yet see anyone. Wait, there. The stars illuminated a figure by the solarium. He crept closer to watch whoever it might be. They stood silently, unmoving, a cloak covering all their body. Until they moved. They seemed to be stalking toward the dorter. A flash of steel in the moonlight, and Crispin recognized a dagger. When the breeze picked up the edge of the cloak and cast it up, he noticed one arm missing. Crispin rushed forward and leapt. He brought down the struggling crouch and pinned him to the ground, "What mischief are you up to, Crouch? A little murder?" He hissed in quiet tones. "Get off me, guest!" "I think not, you churl." He wrenched the dagger from Crouch's hand and took it, holding it to his throat. "Confess! You need not suffer the humiliation under the prioress's eye, nor Father Holbrook." "I done not! Get off me!" He wrenched his knee up into Crispin's gut, whooshing the air out of his lungs. Crispin fell to the side, and Crouch leapt to his feet. He grabbed the knife that Crispin had dropped and took off with it. Crispin rolled and stood unsteadily. "Crouch!" he whispered into the darkness. He staggered forward, but didn't see any point in pursuing him. He was long gone. When Crispin turned, he spied someone mincing tentatively near the door. He watched the figure as it made its way along the path, watched it stop, straighten, and look around. Out of the shadows, another figure flew at the first one, and they both went down in a grunting struggle of flailing legs and soft cries. But when he heard the sound of Philippa's distress call, he launched himself from the shadows of the wall and pelted toward the struggling figure.